The unexpected war. The sun rose slowly over the peaceful valley, painting the sky with soft shades of orange and blue. For years, the humans and the Galari, a gentle alien race, had lived side by side. They traded goods, shared knowledge, and even celebrated festivals together. The valley had become a symbol of trust between two very different worlds. Ethan, a young human scientist, stood outside the research station, smiling as he watched Galari children playing with human toys. He believed nothing could break the bond between their people. But peace is a fragile thing, and sometimes war comes when no one expects it. On the other side of the mountains, far from the valley's green fields, a different kind of meeting was taking place. In a dark chamber deep inside a Galari stronghold, leaders spoke in whispers. Their faces were tense, their eyes full of fear. "The humans grow stronger every day," said one elder. "Their machines, their weapons, they could destroy us if they chose." "We must act first," said another, "before they turn against us." They voted that night. The decision was final. The Galari would strike first, not because they hated humans, but because they were afraid. The attack began without warning. At dawn, while the humans slept, Galari ships soared over the valley. They fired energy blasts into human homes and research stations. The ground shook with the force of the explosions. Smoke filled the air. Alarms screamed. Ethan was thrown from his bed by the first blast. He stumbled outside, coughing, trying to understand what was happening. He saw the Galari soldiers moving through the valley, their weapons drawn. He saw human friends running for cover. He saw fire spreading across the once beautiful fields. His mind refused to believe it. The Galari were their friends, their allies. How could this be real? Velra, a young Galari officer, moved quickly through the smoke. She had been taught that humans were dangerous, that this attack was necessary to protect her people. But when she saw the terror in the humans' faces, the confusion, the hurt, something twisted inside her. This was not defense. This was betrayal. She hesitated as she saw Ethan struggling to help an injured child. He was not fighting. He was saving lives. Velra lowered her weapon. For the first time, she questioned everything she had been told. By midday, the valley was in ruins. The humans fought back where they could, using old farming equipment and a few salvaged weapons. But they were scientists, builders, dreamers, not soldiers. They stood little chance against the trained Galari forces. Still, they fought bravely. Still, they refused to surrender. Ethan and a small group of survivors gathered. In the ruins of the central library, the books had burned, but the stone walls still stood. "We have to send a signal," Ethan said, his voice steady. "We have to tell the world what's happening." The others nodded. They knew the risk, but they also knew they could not stay silent. Velra watched them from a distance, hidden behind broken walls. Her orders were clear: capture or destroy all human resistance. But as she saw Ethan tending the wounded, refusing to abandon anyone, even when it would have been easier to run, she made her decision. She would not follow orders. She would help them, even if it meant betraying her own people. That night, under the cover of darkness, Velra approached the library ruins. Ethan and the others raised their weapons when they saw her, but she dropped her rifle and raised her hands. "I want to help," she said softly. There was a long, tense silence. Then Ethan stepped forward. He looked into her eyes and saw no hatred there, only sorrow, only guilt. He nodded. "Then help us survive," he said. The unexpected war had begun, but so had an unexpected alliance. In the ashes of betrayal, a fragile hope was born, a hope that maybe, just maybe, humans and Galari could still choose a different future, together. Misunderstanding. The basics. The night after the attack was cold and heavy. Ethan and his small group of survivors huddled inside the cracked stone walls of the ruined library. Broken windows let in the chilling wind, and every shadow seemed to carry the threat of discovery. Velra sat quietly near the entrance, her alien armor scorched and battered. She kept her head down, her sharp eyes watching, her hands resting carefully in her lap to show she meant no harm. But trust is a fragile thing, and no one gave it easily. Ethan approached her slowly. In the dim light, he looked exhausted. Dust covered his clothes, and a thin cut traced across his cheek. Still, he offered her a small piece of bread. "You need to eat too," he said. Velra hesitated. In Galari culture, offering food was not just kindness. It was a serious gesture of trust and bonding. She looked up at him, confusion flickering in her violet eyes. Was this the beginning of reproduction? Was this how humans chose their mates? She had studied some human customs before the war, but the records were old and not always clear. Some sources suggested that food sharing was an important step in human courtship and reproduction. Others said it was simply kindness. She did not know which to believe. But her heart beat faster anyway. Carefully, she took the bread from his hand. Their fingers brushed briefly. An electric sensation raced up her arm. Velra blinked, unsure if the reaction was biological or something more. Ethan just smiled tiredly and moved away, checking on the wounded. But Velra sat frozen, staring at the bread in her hands, feeling something inside her change. The next day, the survivors worked to repair the broken radio equipment. They needed to send a signal, a warning to the outside world. Velra helped where she could, though her knowledge of human technology was limited. Once, as she handed Ethan a tool, their hands touched again. The same jolt of energy passed between them. This time Ethan noticed. He frowned slightly but said nothing. They worked side by side, silent, but connected by something neither of them fully understood. That evening, as they shared a meal around a small fire, Velra made a decision. She had to move forward. She had to follow the human reproduction customs she had learned. She approached Ethan after the others had fallen asleep, standing awkwardly by his resting place. Ethan looked up, surprised. "Can't sleep?" he asked. Velra nodded. Then carefully she reached into a small pouch at her side and pulled out a piece of smooth, polished metal, a Galari bonding token. She held it out to him, her hands shaking slightly. Ethan blinked, confused. "What's this?" Velra struggled for words. "In my culture," she said slowly, "this is shared when two choose to create life." Ethan's eyes widened. He understood the gesture, and he panicked a little inside. "Wait," he said quickly. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." Velra looked hurt. Ethan raised his hands, trying to explain. "Humans, we don't start families just by sharing food or helping each other," he said. "It's more complicated." "Complicated?" Velra echoed, confused. "Yes," Ethan said. "It's about time, trust, knowing each other, feelings." Velra frowned. "Feelings?" Ethan nodded. "Like caring, protecting, trusting, loving." He rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "Reproduction for humans isn't just a biological process. It's emotional too." Velra thought about that for a long moment. Then she smiled sadly. "Your way is better," she said. "My people forgot." The night grew colder, but the space between them grew warmer. Velra sat down beside Ethan, close but not touching. They talked in whispers, sharing stories of their childhoods, their fears, their hopes. Ethan learned that Velra had always questioned her leaders but was too afraid to speak out. Velra learned that Ethan had once dreamed of building bridges between worlds, not fighting wars. Slowly, piece by piece, real trust began to grow, not forced, not commanded, but chosen. But outside the ruined walls, unseen by the survivors, a different kind of danger stirred. The Galari command, furious at Velra's betrayal, had dispatched a hunter unit to eliminate all remaining humans. No negotiations, no mercy. They would wipe the valley clean, and they were closing in fast. Inside the library, Velra suddenly stiffened. She stood up, her body tense. "They are coming," she whispered. Ethan rose too, grabbing his weapon. "How many?" Velra shook her head grimly. enough to finish what they started. Fear rippled through the survivors, but Ethan met Velra's gaze steadily. "Then we fight," he said. Velra nodded. This time she would stand with them, not out of duty, not out of guilt, but out of choice, out of something deeper, something stronger, a bond that even war could not break. As they prepared for battle, Velra touched the small piece of bread Ethan had given her, now wrapped carefully in cloth. To her it was more than food. It was a promise, a beginning. And as the enemy approached under the cover of darkness, Velra whispered a silent vow. This time, she would protect. This time she would choose love over fear. This time she would fight for a future worth living for, no matter what the cost. Unexpected changes. The night air was sharp with tension. Outside the cracked walls of the ruined library, the hunter units moved silently through the broken landscape, their sleek bodies blending into the smoke and darkness. Inside, Ethan and Velra stood side by side with the human survivors, weapons ready, hearts pounding. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but they were not afraid. Not anymore. As the first hunter drones crept closer, Velra suddenly staggered. Ethan caught her by the arm. "You all right?" he asked, worry flashing in his eyes. Velra pressed a hand against her chest. "Something is wrong," she whispered. Her skin, usually a soft violet, shimmered briefly, shifting colors in rippling waves. Her body trembled as if fighting an unseen force. Ethan stared, stunned. "What's happening to you?" Velra tried to speak, but pain twisted her face. Her legs gave out and she collapsed into Ethan's arms. Her body was burning hot to the touch. It felt like holding living fire. "Get the medic," Ethan shouted over his shoulder. But no one moved. Everyone was frozen, staring at Velra, because something even stranger was happening. Wherever Velra's skin touched Ethan's, faint blue lines of light appeared, spreading like vines across his arms. Ethan felt no pain, only a deep, humming warmth, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The bond between them was awakening, and it was changing them both. Outside, the hunters paused. Their scanners picked up the surge of energy inside the library. They adjusted their weapons, preparing for full assault. The leader, a cold and calculating Galarian Forcer, gave a simple command: "Destroy everything." Inside, Velra gasped, her body glowing brighter. Ethan gently laid her down on a piece of broken carpet. "Stay with me," he whispered. She opened her eyes and he saw stars reflected in them. Real stars, like entire galaxies lived within her. "Ethan," she said weakly, "you must leave me." "No," he said fiercely. "I'm not leaving you." Tears burned in Velra's eyes. "You don't understand," she said. "Our bond, it's unstable." She clenched her fists, struggling to control the energy surging through her. "If it completes without balance, it could destroy you." Ethan shook his head. "Then we'll find a way. Together." For a moment, everything else faded. The broken walls, the fires, the hunters. Only Velra and Ethan remained. Only the bond, and the choice to trust it. To trust each other. Outside, the hunters made their move. They attacked from three sides, weapons firing bright beams that cut through the night. Alarms screamed. Soldiers shouted. Defensive barriers sparked and failed. The first wave of drones breached the outer wall. Inside the library, Ethan grabbed his rifle, his hands steady despite the fear. Velra struggled to her feet, her body still trembling but her spirit burning stronger. "I can help," she said. Ethan nodded. "Then let's do it." The battle inside the ruins was brutal. Humans fought with desperate courage, using scavenged weapons and raw determination. Velra fought like a storm unleashed. The strange energy flowing through her gave her speed and strength, beyond anything she had ever known. Her strikes shattered metal, her shields deflected plasma shots, but every time she used the bond's power, it drained her a little more. Ethan fought at her side, covering her with precise shots and quick thinking. Their movements synced without words, as if they were parts of the same being. Then the enforcer arrived, towering over the other hunters. His armor pulsed with deadly red light. He moved through the rubble like a living tank, unstoppable and merciless. He raised his weapon and fired. The blast tore through the defenses, hurling Ethan across the room. He hit the ground hard, the world spinning around him. He struggled to rise, pain stabbing through his side. Through the haze, he saw Velra standing between him and the enforcer. Alone. Vulnerable. The enforcer laughed, a cold, metallic sound. "Traitor," he spat. "You disgrace your blood." He raised his weapon to strike her down, but Velra stood tall. Her body burned with blue light. The bond inside her roared to life, and just as the enforcer fired, Velra threw herself forward, unleashing all the stored energy in a single, desperate blast. The collision of forces shook the ground. Walls cracked, windows shattered. Dust and debris filled the air. For a long, terrible moment, nothing moved. When the smoke cleared, Velra lay on the ground, motionless. The enforcer was gone. Only a blackened crater remained where he had stood. Ethan crawled to Velra's side, his heart breaking. "Please," he whispered. "Please be okay." He touched her hand, and the bond answered. A soft pulse of light flowed from her skin into his, stabilizing, calming. Velra opened her eyes weakly. I stayed," she whispered. "You're safe." Ethan smiled through tears. "So are you." Around them, the remaining hunters fled into the night, broken and defeated. The survivors stood in stunned silence, watching the impossible unfold. They had survived, not by strength of weapons, but by strength of trust. And something more. Something new. Later, as the survivors tended the wounded and rebuilt the fires, Ethan and Velra sat together under the stars. She leaned against him, exhausted but alive. "What happened to me?" she asked softly. Ethan smiled. "You changed," he said. "We both did." Velra closed her eyes. "Then maybe we can change everything." Ethan looked at the stars, and for the first time in days he dared to hope. Hope for a future where humans and Gallery could build something stronger than fear. Something born not from conquest or fear, but from choice, from trust, from something deeper than either had ever known before. And somewhere, deep inside them both, the bond pulsed again, stronger, steadier, ready for whatever came next. The hidden danger. The firelight flickered across the broken walls of the library as night wrapped the valley in silence. Ethan and Velra sat close together, their bond glowing faintly between them, a soft blue shimmer only they could feel. The surviving humans worked quietly around them, repairing broken equipment and tending to the wounded. For the first time since the attack, there was peace. But it was a fragile peace, and it would not last. Far beyond the valley, high above in orbit, a massive Galleri command ship floated among the stars. Inside its dark halls, the High Council watched the reports from the valley with growing fear. Footage of Velra's energy blast, recordings of the defeated enforcer, scans of the strange bond forming between human and Galleri energy signatures. An elder slammed his fist onto the table. "This bond is a threat," he said. "It breaks our laws, it changes both species." Another elder, older and wiser, spoke calmly. "It is not just change," she said. "It is evolution." The room fell silent. They all knew the truth. The bond was creating something new, something they could not control, something that might one day challenge the power of the council itself. And so, they made their decision. One they believed necessary for the survival of their kind. The bond must be destroyed at any cost. Back in the valley, Velra awoke to a sharp pain in her chest. She sat up, gasping, feeling the bond inside her pulse wildly. Ethan stirred beside her. "What is it?" he asked, worried. Velra clutched her side, struggling to speak. "Something is coming," she whispered. "Something worse." The next day, strange signs began to appear. The plants near the ruins grew at unnatural speed, twisting and shifting toward the library as if drawn by an unseen force. The air itself felt thicker, buzzing faintly with unseen energy. Machines started behaving strangely. Lights flickered, devices activated and deactivated on their own. Ethan and the others noticed it too. The bond between him and Velra was changing the very environment around them, and not everyone was happy about it. Rack, one of the human survivors, confronted Ethan by the main gate. "This isn't natural," he said angrily. "We're not safe here anymore." Ethan tried to explain. "The bond is stabilizing. It's protecting us." Rack shook his head. "Or it's painting a target on our backs. The Galari won't leave this alone. They'll come back, and next time it won't just be hunters." Ethan knew he was right, but what choice did they have? Breaking the bond could kill Velra, and maybe him too. He couldn't risk it. He wouldn't. That night, as the survivors argued and planned, a single ship descended quietly onto the far side of the valley, sleek, silent, deadly. Inside it were specialists trained for one purpose: eliminate threats, erase problems without mercy. They moved like shadows, blending into the rocks and ruins, creeping closer to the library with every heartbeat, and none of the humans noticed. Not yet. Inside the library, Velra sat by the radio console listening to faint static. Her senses were sharper now. The bond had given her new strength, but it had also opened new fears. She could feel the Watchers coming, their hatred, their fear, their intent. She turned to Ethan, her face pale. "They're here," she said simply. Before Ethan could respond, the first explosion rocked the ground. The outer perimeter lit up with fire. The survivors scrambled, grabbing weapons and rallying at the walls. From the smoke, figures emerged, silent, deadly. Galari assassins, their weapons designed not for battle but for execution. The fight was brutal and quick. The assassins moved like phantoms, striking fast and hard. They targeted Velra first, knowing she was the key. Ethan fought desperately, firing shot after shot, trying to protect her. But there were too many. One of the assassins broke through, knocking Ethan aside. He raised a gleaming blade over Velra's heart, and in that moment the bond reacted. A shockwave of pure energy burst from Velra's body, throwing the assassin across the room. Ethan struggled to his feet and rushed to her side. Velra's body glowed brighter than ever, but her breathing was shallow. The bond was burning her from the inside out. More assassins closed in. Velra clutched Ethan's hand tightly. "I can't hold it," she gasped. Ethan shook his head fiercely. "You're not alone," he said. "We do this together." He pulled Velra to her feet, supporting her weight. And together, they faced the enemy. The bond between them flared to full strength. Their bodies glowed with intertwined blue and gold light. The assassins hesitated, stunned by the sight, and in that hesitation, Ethan and Velra struck. Not with weapons, but with the bond itself. A wave of pure, living energy swept through the ruins, disarming the assassins, disabling their technology, forcing them to retreat. For the first time, the bond spoke louder than any weapon. It spoke of survival, of unity, of hope. When the battle ended, the valley was silent again, but everyone knew it was only the beginning. The council would not stop. They would send more. They would send worse. Because they feared what Ethan and Velra had become. Something new. Something unstoppable. That night, as they sat together under the broken roof, staring at the stars, Velra spoke softly. "We can't stay here." Ethan nodded. "They'll come again. Stronger." Velra turned to him, her eyes full of quiet strength. "Then we go to them," she said. "We show them that the bond is not a threat. It's a future." Ethan smiled faintly. "And if they don't listen?" Velra's smile was just as faint. "Then we make them." They leaned against each other, the bond humming softly between them. Ready, unbreakable, unstoppable. The hidden danger had come, but so had a new hope, and they would carry it into the stars. Together. The awakening bond The valley slept under a broken sky. Fires burned low, casting long shadows across the ruined fields where humans and Galari once lived in peace. Now, it was a battlefield. Inside the old library, Ethan and Velra stood together, facing the small group of survivors who had fought beside them. Fear filled the air, thick and heavy. But beneath it, something else grew stronger. Hope, and something deeper. The bond between human and alien had survived the first storm, but a greater test was coming. The night passed without another attack, but Velra could feel the shift in the air. The bond inside her pulsed like a second heart. Calling, changing, awakening. She stood by the shattered window, looking at the distant stars. Ethan joined her, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "You're shaking," he said softly. Velra smiled faintly, not from fear. She turned to him. "The bond is evolving." Ethan frowned. "What does that mean?" Velra hesitated. Then she spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "It means we are becoming something new." Ethan looked at her, searching her face for answers. "Something dangerous?" Velra shook her head. "Something powerful. Something the Council fears more than death." At dawn, the valley trembled. A deep, humming vibration shook the ground. Machines buried for centuries under the earth began to stir. Forgotten drones. Defense systems. Old human technology, sleeping since the First War. All of it now answering the call of the bond. The survivors ran outside, staring in shock as pieces of the ground split open. Ancient metallic forms rose from the dirt, blinking into life. "What is happening?" Rack shouted. Ethan stared in awe. "They're waking up." Velra stood tall, the blue light of the bond glowing around her. "They recognize us," she said. "They recognize the bond." The machines formed ranks, silent but ready, awaiting orders, awaiting purpose. High above the planet, in the cold halls of the Galari Council ship, the elders watched in horror. Their plan to destroy the bond had failed. Now, it was growing beyond anything they had predicted. An army was awakening, not built by hatred, not fueled by conquest, but by something far more dangerous: hope and unity. The head elder slammed his staff onto the floor. "We must end this now," he growled, "before it spreads beyond this world." They activated the final measure, a weapon buried deep within the ship, a planet killer, designed to erase civilizations with one strike. It began charging, a cold, silent promise of extinction. Back in the valley, Velra felt the shift. The bond warned. Her death was coming, not soldiers, not assassins. Something worse, something final. She turned to Ethan, her heart pounding. "They will destroy the planet," she said. "They would rather wipe everything than let us exist." Ethan's face hardened. "Then we don't give them the chance." Velra nodded. "We fight, not for revenge, for survival, for the future." The machines around them stirred, sensing their leader's resolve. Their weapons activated, humming with ancient energy. The survivors, human and Galari alike, armed themselves. This was no longer about survival. This was about destiny. As the planet killer, weapon charged above, a single old drone repaired by the bond's energy, lifted into the sky. It carried a signal, not a threat, not a plea, but a declaration. A message in old human code, broadcast to the galaxy. "We are still here. We are not afraid." The message reached other forgotten worlds, other silent machines, other lost colonies. And across the stars, things began to wake. Things that had waited, things that had hoped. The bond was spreading, and the galaxy would never be the same. Inside the valley, Velra and Ethan stood at the head of their forces. They held hands, the bond shining bright between them. Rack moved to their side, his weapon ready. "We're with you," he said. Others joined. Humans, Galari, machines, all united by one thing: faith. Faith in something new. Faith in each other. The sky above darkened as the Galari ship prepared to fire. But the bond reacted. The energy built within. Velra and Ethan flared outward, linking every living thing in the valley. Plants, animals, machines, all connected, all one. The power of life itself rose to meet the weapon of death. As the ship released its attack, a beam of pure destruction hurtling toward the valley, the bond answered. A shield formed, shimmering and bright, born from thousands of minds and hearts joined as one. The beam struck. The ground shook. The mountains trembled. But the valley stood firm, protected, alive, undefeated. On the council ship, alarms blared. The elders watched in disbelief as their ultimate weapon failed. The head elder slumped back, defeated. "It has begun," he whispered. The age of the bond. Back on the ground, the survivors cheered. Ethan held Velra close, both trembling from the power they had unleashed. But Velra's eyes were distant. She knew the fight was not over. This was just the beginning. Others would come, those who feared change, those who hated unity. But they would be ready. Because now, they were not just human, not just Galari. They were something more, something stronger, something eternal, and together, they would build a future no weapon could destroy. A future written in trust, in hope, in the living light of the bond. Between two worlds, the valley lay still under the broken sky. The fires from the battle had died, leaving only smoke and ash curling into the cold air. But within the ruins, something new stirred, something ancient, something alive. Ethan and Velra stood at the heart of it, the bond between them now stronger than ever, and it was changing them. Both of them. It began with small things. Ethan's senses sharpened. He could hear the faint hum of the machines underground, feel the steady heartbeat of the planet itself. Velra's body shifted too. Her skin glowed faintly even in darkness. Her voice carried a strange, calming power. Their connection had reached beyond simple survival. It was evolving them, joining them, preparing them for something greater, something neither fully understood. Yet, the survivors watched with a mix of awe and fear. Rock approached cautiously, rifle slung over his back. "You're different," he said simply. Ethan nodded. "The bond is changing us." Rack frowned. Into what? Ethan didn't have an answer. Neither did Velra. All they knew was that there was no turning back. Above the valley, the Galari command ship retreated, limping back into deep space. The council was silent. Their ultimate weapon had failed. Their fear had only grown. And now, the ancient warning whispered across the stars once again. Never underestimate the humans, especially when they are not alone. Deep in the night, Velra sat beside a small fire, staring into the flickering flames. Ethan joined, her wrapping a blanket around them both. "You should sleep," he said softly. Velra shook her head. "I can feel them," she whispered. "The others." Ethan frowned. "What others?" Velra closed her eyes. "There are more. Like us. Others who are awakening. On other worlds." Ethan's heart pounded. "The bond is spreading?" Velra nodded. "We are not alone." The realization filled him with both hope and fear. Hope that they would not have to fight this war alone. Fear of what the future might demand of them. He looked at Velra. Her face lit softly by the fire so alien, so familiar. "What happens to us?" he asked quietly. Velra opened her eyes and looked at him. "We become something new," she said. "Something between two worlds. Something stronger than either alone." The next morning, the first real test came. A transmission crackled through the half-repaired radio system. An offer from the Galari Council. A meeting, a chance to negotiate. But Velra and Ethan both heard the unspoken threat behind the words. Surrender, submit, or be destroyed. The survivors gathered in the ruined library to decide. Rocky slammed his fist against the table. "It's a trap," he growled. They'll kill us the moment we show up. Others murmured agreement. Fear clouded the room. But Velra stood tall. We must go, she said. We must show them we are not afraid. Ethan stood beside her. This isn't just about us anymore, he said. This is about everyone who might follow. About the future we are trying to build. Slowly, one by one, the others nodded. They would go. They would stand. Together. The meeting place was set at the edge of the valley, near the shattered cliffs where the old human monuments still stood. The Galari arrived first, their ships gleaming and cold. Warriors in dark armor formed silent lines. At their center stood the High Elder robed in black and silver, his face hidden behind a mask. Velra and Ethan approached, unarmed, the bond glowing faintly around them. The High Elder spoke without pretense. You have created an abomination, he said. You threaten the balance of all life. Velra's voice was calm. We threaten only fear. The Elder's mask tilted. Fear is the foundation of order. Without it, there is chaos. Ethan stepped forward. Then, maybe it's time for chaos. The Elder's hands clenched. You must surrender the bond. Submit to purification. Or be erased. Velra met his gaze steadily. We will not surrender. We will not be erased. We will endure. The bond between her and Ethan flared brighter, casting long shadows across the broken ground. And in that moment, the choice was made. There would be no peace, not with fear, not with those who chose control over freedom. Only resistance, only hope, only the bond. The High Elder raised his hand, signaling the attack. But before the warriors could move, the ground trembled. The machines hidden beneath the valley surged to life. Ancient turrets unfolded. Drones rose from the earth and from the cliffs. The old human monuments pulsed with power. The bond had called them, and they answered. A new army stood ready, not to conquer, not to destroy, but to defend a future built on trust and unity. The Galari hesitated. For the first time, they saw what they truly faced. Not enemies, but evolution. Not destruction, but a new beginning. The Elder lowered his hand. For now. He turned away, his voice cold. This is not over. And the Galari forces retreated into the mist, leaving the valley in silence once more. As the sun set, Velra and Ethan stood together at the cliff's edge, watching the stars blink into view. They will come again, Velra said softly. Ethan nodded. Let them. We are ready. They took each other's hands. No longer human, no longer Galari. Something new, something stronger. Born between two worlds. And as the stars watched in silent witness, a new chapter of history began. One not written in blood and fear, but in hope, and in the living light of the bond. A new beginning. The stars above the valley glowed brighter than ever, as if the universe itself watched with silent breath. The battle was over. For now. But everyone knew the real journey had only just begun. Inside the rebuilt library, humans and Galari survivors worked side by side. They repaired machines. They reconnected broken circuits. They rebuilt walls not with stone alone, but with trust. Ethan moved among them, checking on supplies, helping where he could. He felt different now. Stronger. Connected. He could sense the thoughts and emotions of those around him, not as words, but as gentle ripples in the bond that linked them all. Every step he took felt like it left a trail of light behind. He was no longer just human. He was something new. Velra stood atop the watchtower, her violet skin glowing softly in the starlight. She felt the same changes inside her. The bond had not only saved her life, it had reshaped her soul. Where, once there had been only fear and duty, now there was purpose, freedom. She turned as Ethan climbed the steps to join her. They stood together, looking out over the valley, the fields where blood had been spilled, the ruins that now grew green with new life. The machines, old and loyal, humming gently in the distance. A world reborn. We did it, Ethan said softly. Velra smiled faintly. We survived, she agreed. But survival is only the beginning. Ethan nodded. They'll come back, he said. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday. Velra's smile grew a little sad. And we will be ready. Not with weapons, Ethan said. Not with fear. With hope. With unity. Velra reached out and took his hand. The bond between them flared warmly. Strong. Unbreakable. Across the galaxy, others had already begun to stir. In hidden places, ancient colonies whispered about the humans who defied extinction. On distant worlds, enslaved peoples dreamed of freedom. And among the stars, forgotten guardians woke from their slumber, answering the call of the bond. Humanity's legacy was no longer just its technology. It was its spirit, its refusal to surrender, its endless, stubborn hope. And now, it was spreading beyond anything the old powers could contain. Weeks passed. The valley flourished. Fields once scorched by war now grew golden with new crops. New structures rose, built from stone, metal, and living vines. The humans in Galari forged a new society, equal united, not through treaties or fear, but through choice, through bonds stronger than blood, through understanding, through trust. One morning, as the twin suns rose together for the first time in months, a new signal reached the valley, a simple transmission. 3 words, we see you. Ethan and Velra listened to the message in silence. Rack grinned broadly. Looks like we're not alone anymore. The message came from another human colony thought lost to history. They had seen the bond's light, and they wanted to join. Velra turned to Ethan, her eyes shining. This is how it begins, she said. This is how we build the future. Ethan nodded. One connection at a time, but hope, like all powerful things, draws enemies. Not everyone in the galaxy welcomed the birth of something new. Dark forces gathered in the cold places between stars. Old empires whispered of war. The council, though broken, still plotted in secret, and, somewhere, hidden deep in space, ancient beings stirred. Creatures that had once tried to destroy humanity's spirit, and failed. They would try again, but this time, the humans were not alone. They had friends. They had allies. They had the bond, and they were ready. The final ceremony was simple. Under the open sky, surrounded by survivors, Ethan and Velra stood hand in hand. No speeches, no grand promises, only a quiet, steady vow. To protect, to endure, to dream. Together, a new flag was raised above the valley, not of any nation or empire, but of unity, a star woven with vines, a symbol of 2 worlds joining into one, a symbol of hope, a symbol of the future. As the crowd cheered, Ethan leaned close to Velra. Are you ready? He asked. Velra laughed softly, the sound full of life. I have never been more ready. And together, they looked to the stars, not with fear, not with anger, but with the fierce, unbreakable joy of those who had faced death and chosen to live, to love, to rebuild, to believe. And in the endless night above, 1,000 hidden voices whispered back, we are with you. You are not alone. This is a new beginning.